Hey everybody, it's Elysia, your Mortgage Millions mentor. And today I have with me my buddy Tony Caico.
Hey guys.
He's amazing. I'm so happy he took time out of his day to spend it with me. We do hang out on a personal level and have a good time. But it's kind of interesting. I'll let Tony tell you in a minute why he is really, he's a mortgage expert when it comes to employment, recruitment, placement. I'll let you tell him you can tell him how we met.
Oh, we met when I was, hey guys, how you doing? We met when I was in between mortgage jobs, actually. We met at the big office building downtown Jacksonville when you had an office for Van Dyke, was it?
Yep,
Yeah.
Van Dyke Mortgage.
Yeah, and I was actually doing life coaching and business consulting at the time. It was kind of in between the mortgage crash and then my re-entry into the mortgage business as a recruiter. Yeah, that was fun.
It's a crazy business.
Yeah, and then I tried to contact you when I became a recruiter 100 times and nothing back from Elysia.
But if you got me, wasn't I at least polite on the phone?
Yes, you're awesome.
I like to think
you
that.
are awesome.
Well, I feel like we're in sales, so if somebody's gonna call us, you got to be polite.
Yeah.
So let me just tell you guys real quick why you should listen to the show today, because Tony's going to talk about what employers look for in mortgage loan officers, in branch managers when they're trying to hire and recruit to grow their business successfully. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And now you know how we met. Yeah, basically our offices were just like 3 doors apart down the hall. Yeah. So, and then really, I guess it was like a couple of years ago that we just like became more social.
Yeah, I don't know where we reconnected, but
Fish company.
Possibly, yeah.
The beach hangouts.
At the fish camp.
The fish camp.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
So cool. So, Tony, you were a loan officer, right?
No, I was started.
I was wrong.
It's okay. I started
It's not
my
the first
career.
time.
Actually, I couldn't do a loan today. Like, so don't ever call me to ask me how to do a loan. Call her.
That I know.
I'm a recruiter, so I'm a sales guy since I was born, and I got in the mortgage business in 1997 as an account executive for a company called IndyMac Bank out of Florida, out of California. And so I became an account executive for IndyMac Bank, and it was interesting. At that time, IndyMac came out with an automated underwriting system. I don't know if you remember. It was called EMITS, Electronic Mortgage Information and Transaction System.
That was about 6 years before I got into the business.
Yeah, oh goodness. And so that was about the first automated underwriting system for non-conventional loans. It was super cool. And so we were the only ones that had it at the time. So I got to learn a lot about that system, and I elevated my career. Started off as an account executive in sales, and then I had prior management experience in my first career, which was the tire and auto business.
That's a tough one.
Learned how to sell in that environment, which was awesome because nobody wants to buy tires, nobody wants to buy shock absorbers, nobody wants to buy brakes. So if you're good selling in that environment, you can sell. So I learned there. And so anyway, fast forward back into the mortgage business. I was an account executive. I got into management because I had prior management experience. EMITS came out. I learned really a lot about that. I got promoted to management. And then I started recruiting. Back then, 1999, I started recruiting. I started adding talent to my team. So what happened was, after that job, I ran up about 30 or 40 account executives. Over the next 7 years, I worked for 3 companies. Most of the people that started with me at the first company followed me to the other 2 companies. And I ended up running, in 2002, running the eastern half of the United States for Citibank's home equity division, where we had about 370 account executives, and we did about $9 billion a year in junior liens.
Junior liens, $9 billion.
Second mortgage.
Are you guys paying attention? $9 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah, junior liens, and then the crash, right? So, yeah, largest bank in the world, highest risk asset mortgage group. the mortgage bank, everything crashes. So I was at the epicenter of that crash. That's when I left the business. And then a couple years later, I met you when I moved to Florida.
That's when I doubled down in the business. I was like, if everybody's leaving,
Yeah.
I'm going to stay and persevere. Because what happens in winter is if you can survive and thrive in the winter, when the spring comes, you're ahead of the curve. So I was like, I'm going to double down. I think I'm going to take a chance in this mortgage thing. Because for me, it was 2003 that I started, then the crash. And it's crazy because I would go to my office and I was the only one there, like me and the secretary, and that was it. The manager stopped coming in, right? The branch manager stopped coming in.
Awesome.
And I was like, why am I the only one working?
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, well, if I'm the only one working and I'm closing the deals for this office and then my manager is still getting paid, I think I'm going to go start my own branch.
Yeah, kind of. When I fast forward later, I'll tell you about how that happened to me in recruiting. The same exact thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's where I wrote after the first crash. That's when I wrote this book. After My Back Nine.
My Back Nine, available everywhere.
So I wrote that book when I was 45 years old, a long time ago. After the mortgage meltdown, and I had some personal situations that I was dealing with. So trying to recover from that, I wrote this book about the second half of one's life. So it's a book that starts on the turn of a golf course. You're analyzing your front nine performance, the first half of your life. You're making plans for the second half of your life. And so it's intertwined through the back nine of a golf course, all 9 components of life: family, spirituality, health and fitness, career, communication, happiness, all those 9 components. So that's when I wrote that book. And that's when I met you. I wrote that book, moved to Florida, became a life coach and a business consultant. And I did that for about, about 3.5 years until I circled back into recruiting.
Cool. So here's what I want to ask Tony. We're going to get into a few more things, but so as a mortgage loan officer, we'll talk about branch managers in a minute, but as a mortgage loan officer, like, I think sometimes we forget we're in sales. We always want to do the best thing for the customer, but we're in sales.
No doubt.
Right? Customer service and how you take care of people, and if you're honest, and I feel like you always got to do the best thing for the customer. If you do that, even if you don't close that one, like, the good karma comes back to you. Like, I had somebody today that wants a HELOC, and I was like, well, let me see your whole statement, because we can get you a lower rate, review the whole thing, and get your, cash out instead of this HELOC. But it didn't really make sense. Like, the HELOC was the better thing for her, so I was like, okay, do the HELOC.
The number one for a loan officer is to be the trusted advisor. I mean, you have to be the subject matter expert on all questions that they have. You have to know about what the market's doing, what rates are going to do, staying abreast of what's going on in the marketplace. Very important to help deal with your clients and to help get better jobs. I mean, if you're interviewing for a job, they're going to be asking you those questions. Tell me about how you manage your business, how you manage the market. Tell me about your relationships. We're in sales, right? So what are your realtor relationships?
That's where the money is.
How do you deal with realtors? How do you build your business? In this market, especially that we're getting ready to go into this year, to get a new job, you're going to have to communicate how you get your business and where you get your business.
If you don't have a book of business.
And there have been times, I must say, as a recruiter, there have been times in the mortgage business where people can get jobs. Companies get very hungry to hire people, and they run through people, and a lot of these people keep getting jobs. Not in this market. When the market's tight, you better really know what you're doing to get a good job. They're not just going to hire anybody.
Yeah, and so what should also, on the flip side, what should loan officers ask the employers?
Yeah, good question. Number one is products, service, loan process. Like turn times. Talk to me about your loan process. I think one of the things people miss often is culture. I think that's
on my list. Yep.
I think that changes over time. I think sometimes when you're younger, your culture is you're looking for a little bit different culture. We tend to be a little more idealistic when we're younger. As we get older, our needs change, our personalities change, how we do things change, what we want to do every day changes. So you really have to understand yourself first and foremost, and then ask questions about the organization to see if it's going to be a culture fit for you, because they're going to do the same thing when they ask you questions. They want to know you're a culture fit. You need to know that they're a culture fit. I have an old saying in recruiting: the river flows or it doesn't. So it has to be the best for everyone. It has to be good for you. It has to be good for them. Those are the folks that get the best jobs.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I'll get questions sometimes on the channel, and people say, you know, what they'll just ask me about like this company, and I'm like, well, you should ask them.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you my experience, but if I don't work there, that's all hearsay. Take the list of questions and ask. And one of them that's on there is culture, process, turn times. Do you provide leads, or am I self-gen? If so, what's the difference in the comp? Like and it's interesting because you said it, like you have to know yourself. If you don't know what's important, then how can you deal with that? So it's interesting actually because somebody asked me if they thought it was okay if they got a tattoo. Tony's got a couple beautiful tattoos, more than a couple. But it was interesting because I was like, that's a culture question. Like, you should go on the interview and ask, how do you feel about my tattoo? And if they're not cool with it, then are you okay wearing a full sleeve shirt, right? I don't have tattoos. I'm not as cool as Tony. But
less important these days than maybe 5, 6, 10 years ago.
Agreed.
A lot of people have tattoos, but still, it's a culture question. It's a fit question. You know, how am I going to fit? Branch managers too need to know all of the same things that we're talking about for loan officers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm telling you next, branch managers.
Yeah, well, and branch managers need to know how to do what I do, which is recruit. One of the biggest no-nos for a branch manager when they get on the phone, when I'm prepping them to meet with the client and I hear the words, I'm going to need some help recruiting. I was promised recruiting help on my last job and they haven't helped me. I'm like, well, I got news for you. The company's interviewing you as a branch manager so you can recruit for them. That's very important. You have to be a recruiter if you're a branch manager. If you're managing the team, even if you're a producing branch manager, you still have to be something. You have to be out there recruiting all the time.
And how easy is that to do in this market? I mean,
difficult.
You had a phenomenal year last year.
Difficult, very difficult. I do less branch and loan officer recruiting than I used to, but when I started my company 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, that's all I did. Because I didn't have the executive deals. I didn't have the relationships in place.
When Tony was talking about burning up the phones, you think it's tough to call whatever, 10, 20, 30, 40 realtors, whatever. How many people, like now even for executive search, or when you did loan officer recruitment specifically, how many people did you call a day? And of those, how many were cold calls?
Well, that's interesting. That's a good question. You might not like this answer. I never did cold calls, although it's important if you're a loan officer to do cold calls.
No, I love that answer.
I do warm calls. So, and LinkedIn gives you the opportunity.
I did not prep him, I swear to God.
I did not prep him.
LinkedIn gives you an opportunity to do a warm call. Everything I do is warm. Most of what I do now is really warm because I place people that I know with people that I know, which is awesome. But LinkedIn is a great opportunity because people will connect with you on LinkedIn. It's not like Facebook. It's not that invasive. People will usually click on okay, I'll accept. I don't know what you want from me, but I'll accept your invitation. And then once they do, kind of opens you up to, try and add some value. I'd love to have a conversation with you sometime. This is what we do. You don't go in and ask them about a job right away because that's a little too aggressive. But it's a great opening.
That's like asking a realtor for a deal right away. You don't do it.
Yeah, no. You just
add value.
Get to know them, talk to them about what you do, what you've done. Hopefully you can get some time with them to identify with them as a human. They can identify with you as a human, and you can talk about what each of you likes and get to know each other. Gosh, the old sales Bible by Jeffrey Gitomer, one of the greatest lines was, everybody keeps trying to come up with new strategies, new sales techniques. And Jeffrey Gitomer says, you just need more friends. People need more friends. People like to do business with people that they know and like.
Mm-hmm.
So just get more friends. Get more people that you talk to that like you, and then you will get more business.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're calling on the realtors, so it's funny. I kind of make a joke out about the whole cold calling thing because I think it's a waste. It's frustrating. It's bad for your ego when you're calling.
Invasive.
It's invasive. Yeah. And these days, like, people have caller ID. If they don't, like, so I'm big on the warm calling.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn's great.
Facebook's
great. Instagram's great. Whatever social media, you guys use. And then the other thing is, too, I'm sure you do this, right? If I want an intro to a realtor, I ask a realtor.
Yeah.
Who do you know that would appreciate my communication style and work ethic?
Yeah, when I get a new job or a new search, I go into the market that I'm looking, and there's 1 or 2 degrees of separation from finding the person that I need because I'll know somebody in the market. So I'll say, who do you know that does this? Who do you know that does that? No, I think it's really important to be warm and to be authentic and have high integrity, because when you're doing social media, and I don't do nothing like Elysia does. I do a little bit of social media. I should do more. Here I am on a podcast. But what's important is that if you're authentic and you have a high degree of integrity, everything sort of rolls together. In the past, in the old days, you had to separate your business from your pleasure, from your Facebook, from your LinkedIn. No more. Like, if you're authentic and you're honest and you are who you are all the time, then that's great. That's what you should be. Be who you are in every situation. So if you need to work on who you are, then work on that too.
So that's interesting. So when you look at people's disc profiles,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then there's how they are in front of other people, but then how they really are.
Yeah, of course.
So you can tell, like, if I'm totally outgoing, but then you look at my disc and, like, I'm really not like that if no one's looking, right? Which that's not the case. I'm kind of like, I am like this all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Like
it or not.
Right, exactly. What you see is what you get. And here's the crazy thing, too. When I first started as a loan officer, even though I worked for a broker to begin with and then a direct lender, I just thought, like, in my head it was banking, and that I just became like a little stuffy. Meanwhile, like, I worked for radio before that.
Yeah.
I worked for a rock and roll station, then I worked for an urban station, and then I got into the mortgage business, and I was like, oh, I just thought I had to be stuffy, which was, I mean, I don't know, maybe part of it was because I was insecure because I didn't know everything, because I was brand new in the industry. I knew sales because I had been in sales for a decade in my first career.
Here's a tip. So know who you are, like, know what your strengths are. One of the best books I've ever read on this is the Tom Rath Strength Finder 2.0, where you can go in and measure there's a test you take online. There's like a code, you buy the book, and then they gives you your top 5 strengths, and it's so spot on. I've done it 3 times, and 3 out of 5 times, I've done 3 times, 2 out of 3 times I had the exact same ones. The last time I had a new one because I was, different, I guess. I don't know, but it's a real good assessment of who you are. Many people go through their careers. I sort of fashion myself as a career shepherd. I talk about this with executives all the time because our business has changed so much and people are in different stages of their life and they should be doing something different. But sometimes we don't know. We get sort of stuck in a rut and we forget what our strengths are. So it's important in interviewing, it's important in searching, it's important in building relationships. What are your strengths? Accentuate the positives is always a good idea. Should you be working on negatives? Yeah, you always want to improve yourself. But when you're in an interview and you're going after realtors and you're recruiting yourself, you need to accentuate the positives, what you're really good at. I do, operations jobs. I do executive jobs. It takes all different characteristics to do these different types of jobs. The jobs we're talking about now are sales jobs. Loan officer, branch manager. You should be good at sales, right? You should be outgoing and an extrovert and all the things that require a salesperson to be. Because what also happens in our business, and you get into the business through a friend, you don't have these skills, and then you hit a market like now, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? The loans aren't coming in, the phone's not ringing.
Yeah.
So long term, stay focused on what your skills are.
Okay, Tony, what are your 5 skills?
So
Top 5.
top 5 are maximizer, analyzer, motivator, influencer, and arranger are my top 5.
Ooh, which was the new one?
Had something to do with empathy. Something to do with empathetic.
That's interesting.
Something to do with being a nicer guy, maybe.
It happens when we get older, right?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. Well, it's important to really really dig into those.
So tell me, so now specifically you focus on executive search in the mortgage industry.
Mostly I do executive work, presidents, CFOs, operations, underwriting managers, CTOs, chief marketing officers, head of human resource, mostly all in the mortgage business. I do some vendor work for companies that support the mortgage business. But yeah, mostly that. But I still love doing the sales jobs because I'm a sales guy at heart. So I do some acquisitions, I do some team transfers, which are fun. I'm in the process of doing them right now.
So make sure you share this video with your branch manager.
Yeah, 5-branch team. We're doing they got let go from the one company, and I caught them at the right time, and we're introduced them to a new company.
Perfect.
So hopefully we're going to pull that one off.
Yeah, I find what I see much more often now is instead of recruiting onesie-twosie loan officers, they're just recruiting whole branches and clusters of branches.
Yeah, people like to stay together for all the reasons we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
People like to do business with friends. I built my entire career on friendships. And the people that I recruited stayed with me for like 3 other companies. So it's the same thing today. If you like working with somebody, you stay with them. So it's important to try and talk to the top person, but not all the time. Sometimes if the team is meshing well and the relationships are all good, you can talk to anybody because they'll talk to whoever they need to talk to, see if there might be a new opportunity. And again, it's timing, right? So this year, a lot of changes. Companies are going to stop, get rid of some operational capacity, which could affect your business.
Yeah.
So you need to identify the companies that aren't doing that, right? Like we're staying focused.
Did you hear that? If you're looking for a job and you're a producer, identify the companies that are not getting rid of ops.
Yes. Or have new relationships with vendors. A lot of outsourcing vendors out there that ebb and flow with the business changes. And so some companies are contracted with them, which is also good for you because they're still doing loans and they're doing them maybe not as good as the old team, but they still do them a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have automated underwriting, right, with DU and LP and Gus, and I've heard now of a couple companies actually where there's the automated underwriting, but then the underwriter who reviews those findings and your submission is a computer also.
Yeah, there's a lot of the bots out there, a lot of the AI coming into which long term I think is going to be good. What's interesting about the mortgage business is that we seem to be slow to adopt to changes like this, but it's coming. So don't ignore it. Try and find out what the technology is at your organization. That's very important. I don't want to undersell that. I know less about it than others, but it's still important.
And speaking of that, what about loan officers? How do you, are we really still needed?
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of like the wholesale business, why mortgage brokers are still needed, which might not be music to everybody's ears on the call, because they see them as competition, but it's not really. I mean, there's enough business to go around. Speaking of trusted advisors. Yeah, trusted advisors. So just like I was mentioning in the wholesale business, there were times where they were thinking that the wholesale business would be diminished, but it always stays strong. And so to be a trusted advisor as a loan officer, that's what you need to be. The trusted advisor in your marketplace. People, a go-to person, subject matter expert, what's going on with rates. And repeat business is everything in the loan officer world. Like the relationships that you have, you can't do a certain amount of business unless you have those.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is if you have 20 realtors, that's great. But if you have 5 or 6 that consistently refer you, as long as they're producing, right?
Yeah.
So you got to watch where you fish.
Well, also, one of the things you do really good is the social media to stay engaged and to stay visible,
Thank you.
right? What's the old acronym? TOMA, top of mind awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be, when somebody's thinking about a loan, they got to think about you. And it's your job to ensure that the people in your circle are going to think about you and not somebody else when they're ready to do a loan.
And so, what do you think is like the best way to follow up? How do you follow up with your executives or your companies that you're close to?
Yeah, good question. I think it's important I have a list of all the placements that I make. So I'm in contact with people all the time. Last year, the year before, I'm always making sure they're okay. For me, especially, and same thing for branch managers and loan officers for prior relationships. You need to make sure that you're still touching them every once in a while. So however you use a ticker file, or there's all sorts of different systems. I'm kind of old school. I have spreadsheets. So I have like spreadsheets from all my placements since I started my company. And I just stay in contact with them. Once a year, I'll send some Christmas stuff out and stay in contact with them.
All right, so we switched it up. We had to move. Got too hot. We're hanging out at Tony's house. And he was talking about, we were talking about, as we were moving, skill set and what you need to do to be a trusted resource and to actually get loans closed. That Tony was going to share with us.
Yeah, so back when I was talking about my early career, the mortgage business was quite different, some of you might remember. The job I had was a manager of a lot of people, and the mortgage business was very busy. And at that point in time, I had to be a good leader, a good motivator. I needed to know which bottle of wine to order at dinner. I needed to know how to speak in front of a large group of people, organize meetings, and really just motivate people to do a great job, which I think I did well by learning each individual person that I worked with, which I think makes me a good recruiter today. However, things changed after the crash. So after the crash, the whole mortgage business changed. So a lot of you folks that are doing loans now are probably really good at this, but what's important to know, I use the word utilitarian. So it's important to be a subject matter expert in all phases of the mortgage business now. So you can't just have all those traits that I just described in this market. Even the managers, even if you're listening to this, you're a region manager or a national manager, even those jobs, you need to be utilitarian. You better know what to do when somebody calls you and asks a question, because the folks that used to be me, they're all trying to get the old job. I talk to them all the time, trust me. I managed a $10 billion business. How come I don't have that job anymore? Well, so the reason you don't have that job anymore is because the mortgage business changed. And now, especially going into this year, you really better know what you're doing from a skill set perspective. You better know what the rates are doing. You better know how the market moves. You better know what's coming up in the job report. You better know when to lock. You better know when to float. And then you need to be the trusted advisor. You can't play darts anymore. You really have to know. And that's the way you'll get repeat business.
So it's interesting when you said that's not the job anymore, right?
Absolutely
There's a great
not.
book I read a long time ago called Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and I feel like the cheese is moving in a big way. Like, let's be honest. We've had phenomenal last 2 years. Like, if you weren't making money in the last 2 years, you just should quit right now. Like, I'm not being rude, but go do something else, right? Because the other thing is, if you weren't making money in the last 2 years, you must not be happy, or you must not be feeding your family, and that's gotta suck.
Or you might not be knowing what your skills are and matching your skills to your job, because if you knew them and you'd be great. Like Elysia, you'd be great at what you do. So it's important to really figure that out.
Yeah, because the bottom line is, it's great. Like, you can make a bucket of money in this industry, but if you're not happy, like a lot of times I talk to rookie LOs and they're like, is this a sales job? And I'm like, absolutely. And if you don't like that, then go do something else right now.
Totally.
I mean, and I guess maybe because I'm older, I can say that, but.
He's not as old as me.
But yeah, if you don't love this business, like, now's the time to go. Because there's going to be a 33%, is the latest number I heard. I originally heard 22% a couple months ago, shrink in the market. And now I heard 33% yesterday. So, I mean, people are leaving. So if you don't like it, go before everybody else and get something you want.
Here's an idea that I just went through an exercise with my spiritual coach. And we did a values exercise. So this could be beneficial for those out there. So we did a values exercise. You can get these cards online. Just Google Amazon core value cards. And it's an unbelievable exercise. You get like 100 value cards and you put them all on the table. And then by one, you start eliminating the values that aren't your core values until you can get down to 10 or 12. I get down to 8.
Nice.
But the process that you go through by identifying your values is very similar to the skills exercise, because skills are important to identify what you should be doing. Values are more important to sort of aggregate things, to really understand what your station in life is, what you should be doing every day, what's going to fuel you and make you happy and give you joy. Joy and happiness are kind of two different things, right? Happiness is people search for happiness. It's based upon happenings, and happenings sometimes are not good. Joy, however, comes from a deeper value place. So this is a great exercise for me. My coach was really loving my process that I went through to eliminate the values. I would highly recommend that. I came down to 8 values, and not only did I come up with 8 great values for my life, I'll do it every year because they'll change. I have a barometer that I check every day. In the morning, I have one in my office, one in my bedroom, and one down here in my kitchen. And I have a barometer. How am I doing against my values? It's been gold. So I would suggest to go.
Get core values. Get Tony's book. Go on. How do you measure? What's your barometer that you measure? Like, can you just give me an example?
Yeah. So one of my values is authenticity. One of my values is love. One of my values is faith. So yeah, it's easy to measure because I look at my day and I see what I did that day. Nighttime's the best. Morning, I just pray it's going to be good. At nighttime, I measure it. Okay, how did I do? Was I short? Was I impatient with one of my kids? Which, if any of you have kids, you get impatient.
Sometimes it happens.
Was I kind? Was I authentic? Listen, I'm a recruiter. And when you guys are recruiting, it's not always easy to be authentic because you can lay it on thick. Hey, we are salespeople, right? And I will lay it on thick. So I got to measure myself with my integrity and my authenticity. Every day I measure it. It's important to do it every day because things will change. But the values exercise is something that's awesome. We should do it together.
Okay.
You should do yours.
All right.
And I would recommend it. Just go on Amazon.com, click core value cards. They're awesome.
All right, I'm in.
Integrity, humility, faith, commitment, love, any core value you can think of, self-improvement. It's like 100 of them, and then you just pick what your core ones are.
That's cool. Yeah, I've done that many, many times with Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
But it's been a minute, so
yeah,
I'll do it again.
Sweet.
Because your core values change, right? What's important to you changes, and what lights you up. And then also, and I say this, now we don't have my book, but my Journey to Success book, the thing that I was so called to write that book because during that time, we're in Florida, so we're like, yeah, COVID's over. It's not like that everywhere else, but which I realize. But that first solid 10 months, tremendous change. If you are not the person that you want to be, change is the only thing that's constant. So look how much changed during COVID. And I was propelled to write the book because we have the opportunity to change every day who we are, who we want to be, who we want to help, who we want to serve, who we're dedicated to. And so I wrote that because 10 months, people were living a completely different way. And the reality is you actually have the choice.
Yeah, and get help. Get a coach, get a career shepherd. Get help. Like, I have conversations all the time about people when we sometimes disagree about something, and I ask them, okay, who's your authority on this? For me, my faith is very strong. So
What a good question.
Who's your authority? Like, are you your authority? Because, listen, a lot of us have read a lot of the old Eastern thought. Some of you guys are still maybe into that. Wayne Dyer and Rhonda Byrne and Chicken Soup for the Soul, where they say you are your one true source, which can be true to a point, but you have to get help. You can't do it yourself. You really can't. And if you try and do everything yourself without a team, listen, we're meant to be social. We're meant to be around people. So who's your authority? Who's your authority? And if it's you every day in the mirror, you might struggle if you're not in community with people.
Yeah, because the whole thing is people can lift you up and pull you up and inspire you. You are the 5 people you spend the most time with.
No doubt.
Right? So pay attention to their core values. When it comes to skill set and who you want to be, honestly, if you surround yourself with people who are better than you, you will actually be lifted up and supported without even.
That's why I'm with her.
That's why I hang out with Tony. That's why, because you automatically, you listen, you learn, like just like a child learns when they're little and growing up in their family, they learn how to speak whatever language is around them, right? So you pick all that up still as an adult. It doesn't change. It just goes at a different rate, if you will.
Yeah, we talked about relationships before, and stay focused on serving, and not like servant leadership or cliche, or really serving, like having an open heart and open mind to serve others. You introduced me to a friend a couple weeks ago. They do staffing in the recruitment business, and we met. A great guy, and he asked me if I would come by his office because I told him I was doing some executive recruiting, and he might want to do some within his company. I said sure. So I went by their office on my own time and just spent an hour with them, and it was fantastic. And listen, when you leave a meeting like that and you have nothing to gain, the rest of your day is gold. I mean, you spend time doing that, you're the cat that ate the canary.
Yeah, and I just introduced them because they're both awesome humans. They're kind of at different phases in their career and their lives, and I just thought they would be a good complement, and they should meet. And that's the thing too, like none of us, the 3 of us, never had an agenda. I just thought, you guys are both in recruitment, you're both really awesome. I respect and appreciate you as humans, and you might be able to help each other, and there you go. So
you should have an agenda for your day, a plan for your business, but lose the agenda when you get face to face or when you get on the phone with somebody.
Oh, that's so well said.
Throw it out. For it to have an agenda, you need to plan your day, you need to plan your week, you need to plan your year. But when you're with somebody, throw it out. Throw it out and be with them, and let them know that you're with them. I listened to a Simon Sinek, who's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Last week about the cell phone. He's on a big cell phone kick. Like, put it away. Mm-hmm. Put the cell phone away. What does that say about how important you are to me when your cell phone is sitting face up, and every 2 minutes you're looking at your cell phone to check your text messages when you're with me at dinner?
It's rude.
Hard to get your kids to do that. Put them down at dinner, but that's a whole other topic.
No cell phones at the dinner table. That's what I say. No cell phones at the dinner table. Boo.
Yeah.
Tell me, if you were in my shoes, what should I ask you that I haven't asked you to benefit loan officers, branch managers, and executives?
Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot. I think knowing who you are is probably the most important. Identifying your skills, make sure you're utilizing them every day and accentuating the positives. I think it's important to build a brand. Everybody needs a brand. Personal branding is pretty critical. You should have a really significant plan to brand yourself. Come up with cool taglines. Like, I do a lot of cool stuff all the time, like the Jerry Maguire stuff. I do Bagger Vance caddy stuff because I'm your caddy, picking your golf club to tell you what shot to hit. So in your business, you pick what your brand should be, and then come up with videos or jokes or cool stuff to talk about that add value. You break up a person's day. I love to do the Jerry Maguire one when he has the mission or the memo. He writes the memo.
Yes.
And it's the best. And he's up all night, he's sweating. I love showing that video because that's him in his idealistic state, knowing that they're being inauthentic to people, knowing that they're shamming people, knowing that they're stealing from people. And so he's writing all this so he could come up with something new and valuable and authentic. Gets in the next day and tries to leave, and everybody shuts him down, and he leaves and starts something new with the one girl and the fish.
Nice.
Sometimes all you need is a fish. I had one last year, Bagger Vance. I named him Bagger Vance.
That's hilarious.
He actually lived almost a year. My kids thought it was funny.
Well, and the amazing thing is he followed his dreams, right? Isn't that what it, I mean, when you come out of college, or if you didn't go out to college, whatever, when you like come out on your own, don't you want to follow your dreams? So, I mean, that's when I was talking earlier, like, if you don't like this, get out. I didn't mean it in a bad way. I meant like, it's funny because when I first started Tony Robbins events, I would take my team, and this is probably ridiculous. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but the truth is, and I always tell the truth, the truth is, I would say, like, after I took them to events, like 25% of them would leave because they realized they didn't like the mortgage business. But I'm like, you know what? Good.
That's good. Yeah.
Like, I always wanted to support and empower my teams. That made sense for them. Yes, for the company, but like, if you're miserable, then go, because you're actually not going to be a good employee.
In my first book, I wrote a quote. So I was writing the book, and I love quotes. So I was trying to come up with a real clever quote for each chapter. And for the career chapter, I really couldn't find one that I liked. So I thought to myself, you know what, Tony? You're writing a book, make a quote. So I have like 4 or 5 of my own quotes in my book. And in the career chapter, I came up with this one. Be careful not to build an unbreakable bond between what you do for a living and who you are as a person. Only the latter matters. However, one who endeavors to build that bond in reverse order opens the door to unlimitless possibilities. If you connect what you do to who you are, it's gold.
I don't think I can follow up that. That was amazing. Thanks, you guys, for watching. Please subscribe, smash the like button, share this with your peers, your other loan officers you work with, branch managers. And if you haven't checked out our app, go ahead and click on the link below. It'll be there for you. It's the Mortgage Marketing Master easy button. Thank you.
See you guys.